Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population and with little or no meaningful engagement leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say. Good evening, Nigeria, and to everyone watching from across the world. Today is June 12, a date that carries the blood, hopes, and broken promises of a nation still wrestling with itself. But tonight, we go beyond politics. We go beyond the performative remembrance and the annual hashtags. My guest is someone who speaks truth, even when it stings, a fierce advocate for justice, equity, and a real transformation personality, yes. Daily Farotimi, and he will join me tonight to expatiate on what we must confront, dismantle, and rebuild to give this country a fighting chance. Now, you may not agree with everything we will say tonight or you would hear from us tonight, but if you walk away unchanged, then we haven't done our job. This is Beyond Politics. It's a June 12th special and another favorite episode on your show, Ways. And my name is Osaiwa Mesali, and yes, I hope to shift minds today, spark innovation, and of course, bring some level of thought-provoking action, in the minds of people. Now, remember, Ways is all about you. You are the why in Ways, so be a part of the conversation every single day. You can add your voice to the conversation. Head on to our YouTube channels at Official Upgrade TV. Hit the subscribe button, like, share, and invite your families and friends to watch the show right now. When I open the phone lines, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this conversation today. But as always, let me allow you ponder on my quote for the day. It says, "Let us rededicate ourselves to the ideals of June 12, freedom, transparent and accountable government, social justice, active citizen participation, and a just society where no one is oppressed." And this was said by our current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So we'll delve into this very thought-provoking conversation right after the break. Stay tuned. All right, thanks for staying tuned. Now, to honor the spirit of June 12, while shifting the focus from the retrospective grief to a forward-looking governance solution, right? My job tonight is that I want to challenge you watching to rethink civic responsibility, leadership as we all know it, systemic failure, and nationhood in post-truth Nigeria. And of course, my guest is on standby, Daily Farotimi, and he's joined me live via WhatsApp, Zoom rather. Wow. Thank you so much. So first of all, let me say thank you so much for accepting to talk to me tonight, because I know that, you are on a very, very well-needed holiday and break, but, you just couldn't say no to me as I'm your, I'm your small sister. So thank you so much for joining me tonight, Daily Farotimi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me too?
Yes, now I can hear you, yes. Thank you so much for joining. So, but how's the holiday, first of all, before we go into the tough stuff?
Well, you know what they say about been able to take the boy away from the village, but it's been impossible to take the village away from the boy.
Absolutely.
So one might physically escape the asylum. It has hardly been possible to mentally walk away from home. So even though I'm away from it, I might jolly well have been at home.
Absolutely, because it's embedded inside of you. I mean, you're just kind of setting the tone for the first question I really want to ask you, right? Because, you know, I've seen all the frenzy and all the things that is going on around the June 12 and all of that. In your own opinion, what does June 12 mean in the collective Nigerian psyche today? Because a lot of people have different meanings to what June 12 is, but what do you think, if you have really assessed the way we are thinking in our psyche, collectively, what does it mean to the Nigerian psyche today?
I will start answering your question by going into something you said in your intro. You said, oh, you hope people would be able to take away the lessons, even though they may not like what they will hear. You know, I laughed when I was hearing that. I chuckled to myself because what you're actually doing is something we used to do when the APC first took power. Before you may criticize the APC back then, you had to first of all balance it by condemning the PDP so that it might not seem as though you were speaking in favor of the PDP because you were criticizing the APC, which was already clear to some of us was equally the APC. You understand? We knew that there were no differences between these people. But to deal specifically with the question you have asked, and I've made reference to your opening because it will be relevant to what I have to say, it will be the truth. Even those who would disagree with it will recognize the fact that it is the truth. The truth of the matter is that we can't be farther away from the ideals of June 12 than where we are today. The person who occupies the office as the president of Nigeria, you just read a quote from him, and nothing can be more hollow than that quote. We can't be further away from the ideals that he espoused in that quote. Number one, we do not have free and fair election. The day we are commemorating speaks to the freedom of the people to elect their rulers. And they went out that day across the ethnic divides and religious divides. They spoke as one. Nigerians found the grace to elect a president. He wasn't a saint. And yes, they've played up all kinds of stories about who he was. They've even called him a drug baron, perhaps to explain today's circumstances. But the reality is that with all of his horns and hooves, as bad as they are trying to portray MKO today, perhaps to deodorize themselves, Nigerians voted for him. Across the length and breadth of Nigeria, yes, it was a Muslim ticket. We were cognizant of that, and we didn't mind. We looked beyond his religiosity because he represented the best of us, and we voted for him. I voted. It was the very first election in which I was going to vote. Across the length and breadth of Nigeria, every disadvantaged Nigerian could resonate with the stories of Abiola because he came from rags to riches. His was the story of rags to riches. He was no saint. We knew he was a wheeler dealer and his friends were in the military. We knew who he was, but he didn't stop us. We voted for him. It represented our sovereign will as a people. And the significance of the day was that our sovereign will was not enough. A bunch of crooks, myopic men could sit in a room somewhere. Some of those who are salivating today and you're applauding as statesmen, they endorsed the evil. They were part of the annulment of the day. And today, they are the ones who have taken power in Nigeria. Somebody like Bagudu, for instance, is one of your ministers. Obasanjo was one of the primary beneficiaries. So when you ask me exactly what is the significance of the day, I will simply tell you that it represented the best that we could have been. And it also showed the worst that could happen in Nigeria. The ruiners of Nigeria snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And that is where you find correlations between what happened in 1993 and what happened in 2023. The sovereign will of the people was thwarted.
So meaning that, what you're saying is that because some people have argued that June 12 was the closest encounter with true democracy. So what I hear you say, it means that Nigeria probably has never had another moment of pure, what's it called, pureness in our democratic processes, right?
Let's put it this way. The closest we came to 1993 was in 2015. What happened was that the blood and sacrifice of the people, their hopes and aspirations, were taken by a very wily salesman in the person of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who could sell highs to the Eskimos. He repackaged a man who added nothing of value after 30 years in office. He'd left office. 30 years after he left office, didn't acquire a single certificate, built no business. Even the moribund ranch he was running in Katsina, Daura, he couldn't even make it profitable. But that is the person they packaged as the savior of Nigeria, and that's the one who started the ruination, if not the killing of this country. But in 2014, in the lead up to the 2015 election, this man was packaged as a solution to the problems of 16 years of the PDP. And that fraud was sold to the Nigerian people as change. So if you count that moment of fraudulence, when Nigerians were misled into believing that they were buying into change, not realizing that they were embarking on this journey to nowhere, except ruination. So except you count that moment, what has happened since then is that in 2023, the people spoke as eloquently as they can be expected to speak in a multi-ethnic, multi-plural society like ours. They spoke eloquently. But of course, their voices were silenced. And I really would not want to be rehashing what happened in 2023, except when we look at it through the rear view mirror of history. That the correlation is that the will of the people was again thwarted. But in 2015, the will of the people was fraudulently suborned to a fraudulent cause. So that's just all it is.
So, I mean, most people say that we are still in political infancy.
Right? We are not in any political infancy.
But
we are in a state of criminal capture. That is where we are. We should be honest enough to tell ourselves these basic truths. Because if you consider the fact that as of today, in the absence of any level of governance except prison stealing, such as the one you are witnessing with their Calabar coastal lane. Outside of that, in reality, what are you seeing? And then you are finding politicians coalescing in the APC, singing on his mandate, they are standing, and then jumping. So what do you see? It's just capture. Criminal state capture. So I'm sorry, I don't see any democracy in any infancy. Democracy cannot be in any infancy in a system where the vote of the people do not count, where the will of the people is discounted. You can't speak about a democracy in such a space.
So given that, DF, given that you just said this now, right, since the way democracy is being practiced right now in Nigeria, shouldn't we then reconsider? Because it seems like it's not serving the people. Why I say this, with what is going on now, with the mass defection, our country moving towards a one-party state, I've just argued that, see, if that is the solution to the problem, so that we just know we are all in one party. Let's not waste money on elections anymore, because it's not, do you understand? Because it means that we can cut off all those expenses and just focus on governance. Because as everybody seems to be moving to a one-party, process, then let them all go to the one party, right? Fight within themselves. Then we will not need to conduct elections. They will just select who they would put at different positions of power. Because, I mean, if it is not serving us, then maybe we should just rethink it again. I mean, they say insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. This is what we've done. We've shouted, we've complained. It seems not to be changing. So beyond all of these things, how do we move towards, a better system that would begin to serve us as a people?
You see, I have said this ad nauseum. I am big on linguistic exactitude. When you use a word, it must mean what the native users of the word intended for it to mean. And if you decide that you are going to Nigerianize a word in the way that it now means a different thing within Nigeria, we can now find another name to call that thing. In the first place, Nigeria is not a democracy. A democracy is underpinned by the rule of law and the sovereign will of the people. Their electoral right cannot be negotiable. That is the one thing that is not available to the person you call the Nigerian, because he is not a citizen, because he does not have the protection of the law. So let's first of all stop using these words. Let's deal with our reality. What is our reality? Why are they jumping into the APC? Why is it that, look, China is a one-party state. It's probably the most developed or most rapidly developing country in the world today. They've moved multiple persons out of poverty in one generation. It's a one-party state. They are focused on governance. This issue of whether we are a one-party state, it does not matter. What should matter is that, are we ruled by law? Are we a country where people understand that there are laws? And these laws, do they govern the conduct of both the ruled and the rulers? Even if it does not govern them equally, even if you've decided to create a caste system where some people are above the law, what are these laws? Are they certain? Can people plan with them? We are not in a situation where we can be talking about a democracy in its infancy. Our reality bespeaks a situation that is worse than military dictatorship because it mimics a democracy. We have a judiciary that would only ever do what the executive demands. We have a legislature where they are busy singing on his mandates, we shall stand. The man is breaking the fraudulent constitution routinely, and nobody considers it an issue. Datib Ahmed said something immediately after the election, before the swearing in of Bulaba. He said, if this man is sworn in, say goodbye to democracy. And he was completely correct. The truth of the matter is that any illusion of democracy that might have existed in Nigeria disappeared with the inauguration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That is just the truth. So let's first of all deal with the fact that we are not a democracy. Our votes do not count, and our judiciary will not protect us. And we do not have a legislative house that will hold the executive accountable. Rather, it is a partner in crime. Almost 7 trillion. Or wasn't that the amount I'm told that had been added to the budget?
Yeah.
And then, so which legislative house is going to, how can they talk about holding anybody accountable? All of them they've discounted us as a collective. They know our votes do not count. That is the calculation they have in their head. So they are completely focused on 2027, and they are busy sharing the loot. There is no governance going on. So it's not about having a one-party state or not having a one-party state. You don't have a democracy. You don't have political parties. A one-party state suggests a collective that is bound together by some ideology by which they then govern the state, whether that ideology is capitalist, communist, or socialist. So you have a one-party state, but there is an overarching ideology by which the people are governed. What is the overarching ideology governing Nigeria today under the APC? Stealing, brazen face stealing, oppression of the people, impunity in broad daylight. People will talk, you'll be chasing them around with cybercrime acts. For what? For speaking against evil in society? And that's a democracy?
You know, I remember when we first had our very first interview that I came to your office, and, you know, one of the things you said was about this current Senate President Akpabio, you know, calling him, you know, a thief, right? And it seemed then that you were being antagonistic, but, you know, going by what has happened in the past, you know, 2 years of his leadership, we've seen so many things, and it just seems like we are helpless. I mean, you often say that we are not citizens, right, that we are subjects. So how do we transition from this subjugation to civic power in a system that is designed to keep us disempowered as a people, right? If you notice tonight, I've not been calling myself citizen, because I know you will fight me every time I call myself a citizen. So I call myself as a people,
why not just
right?
admit to who you are? The best you can aspire to is that you are a subject. The reality is that you are a victim. Interestingly, each and every one of the persons in Nigeria, including the president himself, is a victim. For his health care, he has to run abroad. Victim of a system built by another person. And what has it done to change the narrative? So all of us in Nigeria essentially are victims, but we are not helpless. We have brains in our heads. We have the capacity to think. Some of us have been blessed to be able to travel outside Nigeria. There is a huge Nigerian diaspora. If only the diaspora would become an engine room for change by themselves committing to change, because they need it even by far more than those who have remained, because those who have escaped are those who have brains in their head. They are still sane, so they escaped. Those of us who can escape and have stayed back, we are the ones who are insane. But those who are sane and are here, what are they doing to demand change of the system? I know a lot of them who are party to the evil that sits in Aso Rock today. The mere fact that we continue to delude ourselves about the reality of our circumstances has meant to a very large extent that we've not managed to address the issues. We keep lying to ourselves. We are not in a democracy. So it's not as if we are helpless, but we must first of all admit to the fact of our situation. And when we have then done that, we should then proceed to understand that the most basic of everything we can do is to demand electoral reform. Now, let me tie this together. In 1993, when we were voting, there were no computers inside, no beavers, no high ref. We queued behind the party. We were counted, option A4, modified open ballot, and they counted. And you left the polling booth knowing who had won in your polling booth. And they did manual collation of these results across the country. And we all knew who won the election by the end of that day. So it's not a situation where goodwill exists, where people intend to do the right thing, that we are incapable of doing the right thing. All these demands for electoral reform is not because we believe that we are not better than what we have done. We are. We've demonstrated it. But we are demanding electoral reforms because I think it is the Ndigo that says that when Eneke the bird says that his man has learned to shoot without missing, he too has learned to fly without perching.
Absolutely.
So is it too much to ask that you please, because the basis of bringing a lot of us into the electoral process in 2023 was telling us, lying to us, that brazen-faced liar called Yakubu Mahmoud. He told us up until the last minute that beavers would work. And it worked until it came to the presidential election that he had sold. So let's be clear about something. Is not really, these demands for electoral reform is not a function of us believing that we are not better, but because they have taught us not to trust anything. So when we are saying that it should become mandatory, it is because when it was left to the discretion of thieves elected to sell that discretion instead of exercising it judiciously. So we have every reason to be demanding these electoral reforms. And if the people will, for once in their lives, move beyond partisanship, ethnicity, forget the fact that today we have actors like Tinubu and Obi and myself, we would all die. We will go one day. There will be children behind us. There will be generations to come. It is the foundations that we lay today that they would have to build upon. If we allow ourselves, because of silly transient gains. Okay, so he's a Yoruba man today. What about the day a Fulani man, an Igbo man, an Hausa man, an Ijaw man, an Ibibio man would have that power to wield? What happens then?
So, I mean, just speaking to what you've just said, because if you look at the current structure of Nigeria today, right, I see that it is going to be almost impossible, right, to govern Nigeria justly without dismantling this existing federation, right? Because
you don't have a federation. Why are we lying to ourselves? You see, the first thing we must do, you see, it is critical. It is exceedingly critical that we must stop allowing them to use us to subjectivize the truth. The word bogus in English language means false. In Nigeria, it came to mean big. We cannot allow the same thing to happen with democracy, where we use words that do not mean what it is intended to mean. It cannot happen. We can't be allowing this. We cannot be allowing this. There is no such thing. Please.
Okay, since I mean, you don't consider Nigeria as a federation, right? Do you think, because we've had this argument before. Today, I just saw a news that said that the civil service, the president, the federal government has directed them to go fully digital. They are to put in certain kind, also all the MDAs and all the ministries, they go fully digital to eradicate paperwork. I mean, we've heard so many arguments about how too many corruption happens within the civil service. It's a structure, it's a system. So Nigeria's problem, is it about who leads us, or the fact that we do not have a structure, how our current systems are structured? Is that not the real core? Because for every time we keep on saying, oh, there's a precedent, I get it. People will say it starts from the top. Once we have the correct person at the top, it will trickle down. But as it is now, right, I don't even know how we are going to come out, because I'm trying to find a solution here. Somebody was saying that on Instagram, said, please ask DF what system can work for us. He also said that Jimmy Disu said that he enjoyed his journalism much better during the military. Is this true? That I should please ask you. I mean, that's what I'm saying, that what kind of system should we be looking forward to? Because as it stands now, we are not going to change anything. It's going to... DF, I'm going to be 40 in November. I will be 40 in November. And I know what my grandfather told me when I was a toddler. I remember some of the things he used to lament about. It doesn't make any sense. Yes?
Let me show you something. When I was learning government as a subject, and I did it both at O levels and at A levels, and I studied politics at undergrad level as well, they taught me that federalism is about independent nation states who came together and decided to donate their powers to the center, but it's donated certain powers while they retain some. And I'm also blessed to have been a student of Nigerian constitutional development and of its history. And what I know as a fact is that without federalism having been accepted as the ground norm for the country that was going to be built, there would never have been a Nigerian state. None of its founding fathers would have agreed to a Nigerian state. Let us be clear about that first. So what has happened is that Nigeria has gradually become the estate of men and not the estate of its citizens. Strong men have restructured Nigeria without the concurrence of Nigerians. As at 1966, Nigeria had 4 regions, and it was a federation. By July 1966, the madness that started in January was perfected, and Nigeria died. The Nigeria that was battered, not necessarily in 1960, but in 1951, completed in 1954 because of the different constitutional conferences where the format of that new state was agreed, what it would look like, what would be the rules governing the fiscal policies, even foreign affairs. Western region had its own embassies. The northern region had its own embassies. Most of what became Nigerian embassies in the West had their root in the western region and the eastern region. The North preferred to have his embassy in Khartoum and in Jeddah. So let's be clear that the Nigeria that was agreed, negotiated, was killed in 1966. What came after 1966 has been the child of men who did not necessarily, even when they pretended to consult, as at with the 1977 Constituent Assembly, by the time they brought out their decree that became the 1979 Constitution, what was recommended was different from what became the Constitution on multiple levels. So let's be clear that by the time they are talking about the 1999 Constitution, it even became worse, because the same Constitution that would not survive for more than 4 years and 3 months, the 1979 Constitution, is the same one they packaged and labeled the 1999 Constitution without taking into cognizance the reasons for its original breakdown. So what you have today is not reflective of the will of the people, where you have 36 states, 774 local governments. That is not what the founders of Nigeria agreed. And what you have today, where it is the federal government that is sending money to local governments and they've become revenue sharing point, is an abomination in what says is a federation. The local government is the business of the state, never the government, and never that of the federal government. The state is the federating unit, even though it's a lie, because the federating unit was created by bandits and thieves. Abacha created God knows how many states. Babangida created God knows how many states. So did Obasanjo and Muritala. So did Gowon. How many of these flow from the people's will? But they'll tell you we are too far away from that now. We should manage with what we have. Okay, let's manage with what we have, but where lies the will of the people? Do they even have a say? Can they vote in persons who can go and negotiate the structure of Nigeria on their behalf? Because what is clear is that what we have is unsustainable. You cannot have 37 states, because by decree of the Supreme Court, you more or less have 37 states now, with Abuja being treated as a state. So I don't know why we continue to, we keep traveling in circles, lying to ourselves that this journey that we take in circles will take us to where we are going eventually. I don't know how long it will take, but at some point we are going to have to admit to ourselves, whether we like it or not, it will take a revolutionary movement, hopefully a peaceful one, to change Nigeria from its current trajectory. Because those who should be talking about change through the electoral system are the ones you are seeing jumping into the APC, because they are sure that if they are there, they can retain their snout in the trough so that they can keep feeding from the Commonwealth. They will prefer to go there. And you can't demand principles of the people who have never ever shown it before. Nigerian politicians have no backbone.
Wow. You know what? Let's go on a very short break. Let's go on a short break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right. Thanks for staying tuned. Now, if you're just tuning in, I have Dele Faritimi. He's my guest for the evening, and we're looking beyond politics. A June 12th special, and yes, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081 803846663. You can also call us on 07025007749 or 07014242420. You can call us to join in the conversation. So DF, I listened keenly before we went on this very short break, and in my head I'm thinking, first of all, you said there were some people that killed the structure that was supposed to work in 1966, right? And it seems like, after that time, we have just been running around in circles. So the question I want to ask now, because I hear you talk about the electoral reforms that we must really demand for. Should we be demanding for electoral reforms or constitutional reforms? Because I know, again, over the years, we've done different constitutions and all of that. Because if we do not have, the constitution is supposed to be the foundation that governs what we then build on, right? So is it the electoral reforms that will solve the problem? Or we should start to really intentionally start to cry out for a constitutional reform? Akpabio's leadership, I'm very wary of what he's doing in the National Assembly. You know why I say so? There was a time that we had a president that wanted a third term. President Obasanjo wanted to come back for a third term, right? If, a lot of people have said this thing in different quarters, that if it were this National Assembly that we had at that time, I am very sure that something would have, it would have been approved, given the antecedents of what had happened in the past. So what exactly should we demand for? Is it constitutional? Is it the electoral reform? Which would be more effective? Because we need to find a solution. We need to be strategic. We need to find a way forward.
Ua, when you talk about Akpabio leadership, my mind went back again to linguistic inexactitude. When you speak about leadership, the word leadership is suggestive of vision. Because to lead, you must be headed in a direction. You cannot lead without a direction in mind. What is the direction of travel towards which you are headed? That is when you lead. When you see the cow seemingly leading the Fulani herder, it's because the cow knows where he's headed. He knows his feeding grounds, or he knows the way home. And if he heads in the wrong direction, the herder would shepherd it to head in the right one. The unfortunate thing we have is that Nigeria is bereft of leadership. We have thieves, base crooks, myopic men occupying high offices. So the only thing they ever think about is how to steal. Stealing becomes a purpose. Poor Obasanjo and poor us. Because as much as I dislike the egotistic attitude of Aremu, the Ebora of Ota, the truth of the matter is that intellectually and in terms of vision, except by his limitation on account of ego, if Obasanjo had become a live president, Nigeria would have been a better place than this idiocy that has befallen us. What has befallen us is a situation where I think it was, I can't remember which one of those great minds. It says that history is cyclical. The first time is a tragedy. The second time is a farce. What you have today is a farce. What you have in place of the Akpabio, you will do it, not just Akpabio, because Akpabio is merely the arrowhead. It's easy for us to speak of Akpabio, but where are the honest men in that assembly? Who is the one? Where are the good men in that assembly? Who has distinguished themselves as being any different from Akpabio? So yeah, we may point at Akpabio, and we can point at the multiple files that he has with the EFCC, including the multiple charges that were filed before the court, before he was beatified as a saint by the hypocritical saint of Daura. We can talk about all of that, but it does not change the fact. We can speak of Akpabio, he's the head. But where are the ones who are different from him within their hollow assembly? Where are the ones different from him? So, yeah, Akpabio and this National Assembly would have handed Obasanjo anything he wanted, but the truth of the matter is that an Obasanjo-like presidency would have been better for us than the tragedies that has befallen us. And that is the tragedy of Nigeria. We keep looking to the past to find the best. It's just, it's a tragedy.
So which then goes back to what I said before, right? Four years in office, right? Because if we have one good head and the person does 10 years, 20 years,
it's not about heads.
So what is it about?
Let me put it this way, Uwa. There is an ongoing consultation, or let me say there are ongoing consultations. And some of us will be speaking not too long from now. You cannot change Nigeria on account of personnel changes. I've said this ad nauseum. 1,000 daily to me recycled in government offices without us having the capacity to tinker with the existing governance system. We will merely be perhaps visionary thieves. There was a Peter Obi in Anambra, and that's as close as you will come to governance perfection in the space called Nigeria, at least in the last 26 years. Peter Obi did the best he could. Yeah, he went about saving money, he went about building, he went about doing all he could. But what has happened since he left? Even if not for the fact that for years his legacy went unchallenged, they would have rewritten his history. They are denying it today because he couldn't touch the structure. He could only ever deal with himself as a person, and on account of his own personal capacity and integrity, he could do what he did. But the moment he left, the system that is already designed for corruption and impunity kicked in. Because even he himself had to operate that same system, he only did so successfully on account of his own personal integrity, not that the system was not amenable for impunity. The system was always designed for impunity. And after his reign, even though he was part of the succession planning, look at what happened with Willie. Look at what happened with the one that is there now, Soludo. Look at what is happening. So you can only, even Anoti in Abia, he will dance around for 8 years if he's blessed to get a second time. He will try the best he can. If you don't touch that system, if a prodigal comes after him, all the things he believes he has done will be undone within years.
Absolutely.
So until you touch that system, and some of us are coming together and we're talking to ourselves, and the intention is that that system has to be touched. But you can't touch that system looking for office. You can only touch that system when you present a pan-Nigerian agenda for the people.
Yeah.
Understand from the beginning that when we are talking about a change, this is the meaning of that change. If we are talking about restructuring Nigeria, this is the content of restructuring. We're not just talking about a political manifesto that is dwelling on what we will do with agriculture, what we will do with healthcare. No. First thing first, before we can, if you are talking, for instance, they say, let me even leave personal examples. Let's just stick with what we're saying right now. If you say change, what does it mean? You are restructuring Nigeria into how many? What does that change look like? What does it mean?
I was even going to ask you, as a follow-up question, that if we wanted to look for a functional people-first governance structure, what would that look like? But I think I have someone on standby. Loma, you're live. Quickly, you have a minute.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, I want to let us know one thing. People say we are celebrating democracy. We are not celebrating democracy. We would have been celebrating democracy if Abiola was given that presidency, which he won, that would have made us to celebrate democracy. In 2023, another landslide victory occurred in Nigeria. They decided not to give it to the rightful owner. Why are we celebrating democracy? Why are we calling it June 12th, Democracy Day? Until we purged ourselves the sins of not doing the right thing. When somebody wins an election, decide to give it to somebody who did not win the election. You say democracy is government for the people, so by the people for the people. So, but for this one, June 12th, 1993, and this time around, it's not democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Loma. I mean, everybody will tend to agree with you. You know, I think sometimes we need to really tell ourselves some very uncomfortable truth, right? If we really want to build a functional state. But, you know, DF, I mean, I've had different people call me who are, you have to take it easy, oh. This government, they are not friendly, oh. You have to be careful, oh, you know, and all of that. I mean, at some point, we really must just say it as it is, right? You know, so I don't know. So I was asking a question that if we wanted to look out for like a functional people first governance structure in Nigeria, what would it look like? What immediate practical steps must we start to take, you know, not just politicians, as citizens?
Let me tell you this. The only thing a system is fit for is the purpose of its design. What are you looking to achieve? That is the first question that should govern whatever it is that you are looking to design. The original designers of Nigeria, and I'm not talking about the Brits now, I'm talking about the Nigerians who presume to be the fathers and mothers of Nigeria, designed a federation. It didn't happen overnight. It was by experimentation, argument, even fights. They disagreed, argued with each other, quarreled. Between 1951 and 1954, they must have held at least 10 different conferences. From Ibadan to Enugu to Kaduna to Lancaster House. And they ended up agreeing to have a federal system. It was 3 as at 1960. By 1962, the Midwestern region came out of the Western region, and it came by a process. It involved having a plebiscite. It involved an economic survey. It involved the Western Regional House of Assembly passing a bill for that region to be created. That bill went before the Federal House of Representatives in Lagos. It was equally passed, so there was a structure that allowed additional regions to be created. And this happened in 1962. So by 1963, there was the Republican Constitution. And that Republican Constitution gazetted clearly the 4 regions. And that was what was in existence up until the coup of 1960, the first in January, the second in July. Here is the thing. If we are going to resolve our conundrum, we need to go back so that we may go forward. And how do we do this? Between 1966 and date, fraudulent as I might believe the host of those conferences to be, a consensus has arisen in Nigeria where we generally accept that we have 6 regions. These 6 regions, broadly speaking, speaks to the aspiration of the Nigerian people. So if you took the 1963 Constitution and you tweaked it minimally, you can have a federation of 6 regions. And then these 6 regions can do what they please with local governance and all of that if the people are truly citizens whose votes count for something. So the platform that we are trying to put together, it will be bold enough to place all these plans in the public space and then get the public to decide if they want to queue behind something like that or whether they want to remain where they are in the hope that personnel changes may save us And perhaps we'll continue having the kind of people we have now because they are the kind of people this system will ever produce. It can't produce anything better.
Let me take Lima. I believe we have another caller on standby. Lima, are you there? Hello? Okay, did we lose the person? Okay, so for those watching us on Plus TV, we might need to go off at exactly 9 o'clock, but we'll continue on YouTube. So you can join us on YouTube because I just need us to tidy up the conversation. We're not rushed. DF, there are questions on YouTube. Somebody says that, sir.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Lima, are you there?
Good evening, please.
Good evening. Go ahead, please.
I can't hear you too clearly, but I just want to commend.
Go ahead. Oh, sugar. All right.
Yes, I just want to commend the activist that is speaking very well for the whole Nigerians, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Lima.
Yes.
All right.
I just want to commend the activist for the job he's doing. In fact, we truly love what he's speaking. He's speaking for the whole Nigerians, in short. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Otto Obong Robert says, sir, as much as electoral reforms will not benefit our politicians, what makes us even think they would accept it? He also said, in this song, on the mandate we shall stand, being sung by today's political office holders, do they mean that it's President Tinubu's mandate their National Assembly members or governors will stand? All that question. Do you want to respond to that before I move on to my next question?
Aside from saying that, one, I am not an activist. I don't particularly even like being called one. No, I don't. I have never in my entire life, done anything to earn that kind of tag. I'm simply a Nigerian. I do not desire that tag. Comrade, activist, please. I'm just a Nigerian. But to deal with the question that he has raised, power does not give you anything without a struggle. I don't expect those who benefit from the system to willy-nilly, happily, just hand something over to us. So yeah, take your freedom. No, even Bulaba, if you listen to that, is that Bugawa song when himself and the midget of Kaduna were dancing. He said, power is not served a la carte. And he's right. If you, the victim of this unconscionable power that discounts your rights as citizens, if you elect to allow those who are grabbing it and running with it, ruining everybody's lives, if you would allow them to keep grabbing it without muttering, they'll keep quiet. I remember a collective I belonged to one time. We called it Lambs Can Cry, because it is the silence of the lamb that dooms it to the slaughterhouse. If we keep quiet, as we have all kept quiet, everything is happening and we are rarely ever outraged. Even members of the reigning class comes out to taunt us that we don't react to their own evil. I can't count the number of times I've heard Rotimi Amechi saying that thing, that you people don't do anything. And he's telling the truth, as nauseating as I find what he's saying to be. It is the truth. We've gone beyond being shocked. If he's our own thief, he's not a thief.
Yeah.
Because we subjectifies the truth, we can no longer talk.
DF, just what you're saying, is it possible that Nigeria's problem is not corruption, but the culture, this culture, that we have built, that it has become, that rewards impunity and punishes integrity? Because I'm still trying to wrap my head.
You don't have a problem with corruption in Nigeria. You do not. We need to come to the point where we understand this. If we had a problem with corruption, Akpabio would be in prison. If we had a problem with corruption, the bulk of the persons in the National Assembly, particularly the ones who transited from government lodges into the National Assembly, they should be in prison. Our president should be in prison. So we do not have, so we need to get to the point where we begin to have that understanding that words do not mean what they are meant to mean in our country.
Okay.
We need to look at the truth of what you see and use the proper word to describe what you are looking at.
DF, let's go back to June 12th, given that that is the basis for even why we started off this conversation. So if we were to strip away the nostalgia of June 12th, right, what do you think would be the actionable lessons for today's generation? What should we do?
Ua,
Yes.
the Nigeria that we are in today is a place that is far removed from the one that we had expected to be in 1993. We are far away, so far removed from where we hoped to be. Today, they said hope 93, Abi? And this one came and said renewed hope. The reality is that the one thing that has been evaporated in Nigeria in the last 10 years of the APC is hope. Hope has been completely evaporated from our space. So when you look at 1993 and you want to speak to today's youth, the only thing I can say to them is very simple. Insist on the sanctity of your vote. That is probably the only way that you can retain any hope of any change in the future. The people who are benefiting from the system, they have no hope to offer. They vacuum hope. We do not have a problem with corruption. Ours is a country that is ungoverned by law. You can only speak about corruption in spaces that are governed by law. Because those spaces are governed by law, there will be consequences for the actions and inactions of persons. But when you have a situation where known crooks, persons whose crookedness are well documented and matters of public records, I was reading through Akpabio's indictment by the EFCC, and he is nauseating, and he is merely a type. He is merely a type. I speak of them only as types because it will be unfair to the persons if you focus on their persons. If I focus on Akpabio, I'll be ignoring the remaining ones, Alibaba and the 40 thieves. It's Alibaba and the 40 thieves all over. So it's not just Akpabio. It's a system where nobody is held accountable. It's not just about financial stealing. All manners of criminality sanctioned and licensed by the system. You'll be standing at a traffic light. A bus will pass right by your side, and you just wave at the policeman and last man who are meant to hold him. And you, who has not paid the license fee for that impunity, dare to move like him. They hold you, but they would not hold him because he has paid a licensing fee for that impunity. You see them at the bus stop. Somebody is collecting money and they are writing on very tiny sheets of paper. They are keeping track of who has paid for the day's impunity. So if that person has paid so that he doesn't have to obey traffic rules, that is the system we are operating. If it were to be one where people are corrupt, then you are talking of consequences for those actions. There are no consequences. So you are not able to speak about corruption. You are a state governed by impunity. The whims and caprices of depraved human beings who are bereft of vision. If they had vision, the same power of impunity, they direct it in positive directions. Because that is the same power that is governing places like Dubai. Nobody is checking them. They have the power to act without a legislature or a judiciary unnecessarily inhibiting them. But they respect the laws.
DF, when you started the conversation earlier, you touched on a little bit on, what's it called, the diasporan community. And, you know, as you gave on the example of the sheep, right, you talked about silence, right? Why do you think Nigerians, especially the ones that are educated, that are upwardly mobile, why do you think they're choosing comfort over this resistance, right? How can we just break this culture of silence and, you know, I'll call it learned helplessness? Because it seems like, you know, the elite, and this is across all divides, right? They have silently agreed to keep Nigeria broken for personal gain. And if we don't change anything, nothing is going to change. So, you know, how do we get a critical mass to reject this social construct of complexity that we currently have today?
Well, unfortunately for us, very, very unfortunately, poverty has been weaponized in Nigeria. And with the weaponization of poverty, what has happened is that what should be the middle class has been rendered existential. So it is completely focused on surviving. It's focused on paying children's school fees because the public education system has collapsed. So they have to pay ever more exorbitant school fees. The healthcare delivery system has collapsed. So what should be a member of the middle class is only one sickness removed from poverty. So when you find, and then there is no credit system any longer. You have loans only available at 30-something%. So a lot of them are struggling with mortgages that they picked up. So that class has been effectively wiped out progressively since after COVID. So what you have today is an existential class instead of a middle class. The wiser members of that class have fled Nigeria. They fled Nigeria in droves. That is why today you have more people asking to be admitted to read nursing than to read law, because they are seeing nursing certificate as a shortcut to escaping the madness that we have built and called a country. So what you are saying is a middle class that has been rendered completely existential. So you are either rich or you are poor. Now that we've gotten the middle class out of the way, let's deal with what you call the elite. You see, when you speak, and I keep saying this thing, you are not the only one. All of us, we tend to misuse these words until we pause to think. What is an elite class? An elite class is one that lives essentially selflessly and sees itself as the engine room for envisioning a society. That is an elite class. So it means that in the heart, they strive for the best. In governance, they strive for the best. In everything, they are looking for the best. That's why you call them elite. In fashion, in everything, they are looking for the best. They are sybaritic in their taste. They are looking for the very best of everything. I'm not talking about the best of egos. I'm talking about the best of substance that outlives a man. These are people who are bound together by collective ideals and visions of a better society. That is why you speak of them as an elite. But where is the Nigerian elite? Is it in academia? How many voices have you heard in the academia speaking against the evil that has overtaken our society? Can you speak of an elite class if you look to the legal section, that sector? How many voices, whether you are speaking of jurists or you are speaking of members of the bar, how many elites remain? Do we have elite carpenters? It's not just about, we can point fingers at our politicians. Where are the elite bankers? What consumes all of them beyond sybaritic pursuit of personal comfort? What is it that consumes them? What is the overarching vision? You are a poor man when you are the richest amongst the poor. You are just as poor as them. They say there are 6 poor people and 1 rich man. I see only 7 poor people. So we don't have an elite class. It's unfortunate. They are consumed only with private acquisition. So all you see in the place of an elite class are people who are just an impoverished class, impoverished, poor rich men and women. all around you. Look around you. The very best of what they've created are concrete jungles in slums.
I mean,
So
dear,
I don't see any. Yeah,
you know,
yes.
I listened on a very short. There was a short clip that had been going viral of our president, and he was speaking to the political parties that have had several kinds of disruptions and all of that. And somewhat in a very, sarcastic way, he talked about, I mean, he needs them to continue to be in disarray so that he can, at least have a breather, because, I mean, that's my own conclusion, right? One of the processes to be able to elect, what's it called, the right leaders is through the electoral processes, right? And right now, with the current political structure, the political party structure that is going on, it seems like it is only one party that is surviving, the tsunami of the effect of a President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, right? Because again, you must give it to him that he knows how to plant a lot of things, to just get things to work in his favor politically. So how do we, right, where are the political parties that would be able to stand, and kind of like counter or, give them a run for their money in 2027? Do you see any?
When, may God rest Chief Ayo Adebanjo's soul, when Chief Adebanjo was alive, he kept telling us around 2021, he said, go and start mobilizing our party members. I used to look at him like, how can you be talking about a party when we don't even have a political platform? Our party has been hijacked and we don't have a party with which to contest any election. I completely misunderstood him. All through the time he was alive, I misunderstood him. And then after he had died, I began to understand what he was talking about. It became clearer to me. And what I began to understand is that when he spoke about a party, he was talking about the idea. If we organize ourselves around ideas, we are more than them. For every one of the beneficiaries of Nigeria that has crossed into the APC, there are at least 10 million Nigerians. So how many of us have actually sought to unite our people behind ideas to confront this system? We bellyache every day. We complain every day. But what have we done to confront the system with ideas? It's not about confrontation with violence. How about confrontation with ideas? Why is it impossible for us to do that? So I am at that point now where I'm more focused on looking to organize the people politically. This is not activism. Politically, organize the people behind clear ideas. And this is not about 2027. Let's be clear about that. We may not be able to do anything about 2027. It may very well be about 2025. It may very well be about 2026. It is about confronting this evil idea that has built an evil system with an idea that stands in contradistinction, and then allow the people to decide behind what they queue. So let the politicians go ahead and be queuing behind the APC, but let those of us who believe that there are better things to do, let us build platforms that confront that evil idea. The APC is about an idea, a very evil one, that suggests that stealing should be normalized and nothing should be sacrosanct. Those of us who believe that that should not be the case, it is not enough that we complain. It is critical, very, very critical, that we organize ourselves around ideas that we do believe should apply in building a system, and then confront based on those ideas.
So I
That is
hear
what has
you.
to happen.
I hear strategy as you talking, right? I hear strategy, and I've always said that the approach to, because you must match certain kinds of challenges, strategy for strategy. Because if you look at it, right, what has happened over the years in Nigeria has been very strategic. A lot of people have positioned themselves, so so I hear you, and I hear you say strategy for, matching strategy to be able to, counter whatever it is that is happening. There is still that factor that played out because, human beings are quite interesting. These days, before, when I see people shouting and fighting for Nigeria, I'll say, yes, the person has the heart of Nigeria. But now, over the years, I've come to learn it's not everybody that comes out to say, oh, they are an advocate, they are an activist, they are whatever, because everybody still has that internal intent, would I call it, right? There is still something inside of the person, that would truly, and usually it shows up, it shows up at a particular time, maybe when whatever it is that they have been planted to do, then materializes, then you now start to see their true colors, they call it, right? We still have that factor play out very strongly in Nigeria. So what gives that we still have those quality people, or the people that truly have the heart for Nigeria to want to take the country forward? Somebody sees me doing this, they go say, oh, don't worry, shut up. She dey fire appointment. As soon as they give her something, she go mellow. That is the genuine. And as I said today, I just want to be honest. It is the reality. So even all these people shouting, a lot of times we've heard so many stories about how people were compromised at the NSAS, mobilization and all of that. So the politicians just know how to plant those people, right? So if that factor still remains strongly, what gives that this strategy, of mobilizing people, when you truly don't know the true intention? I'm not a witch to tell what is inside the mind of the person. So you don't know the true intention of that person. How do we know that we are actually even really being backed by people that have like minds and truly want to see this country progress?
You see, Ua, you remember that somebody called me activist, and I took umbrage.
Yeah.
Said, don't call me activist. I'm not an activist. Don't call me a comrade either. It's because these words have been discredited. Discredited, unfortunately, by our sickening reality. People have discountenanced principle because of pecuniary interest. Truth has been subjectivized. What was stealing when done by A, we are blinded to it because it's been done by our persons. This has become the defining characteristic of our society. We have normative collapse now where we don't even seem to know what is right and what is wrong. But it is the propensity of the Nigerian to keep searching for vote runs that have left them as victims in the hands of charlatans who have claimed to speak on their behalf. No Nigerian has more right in Nigeria than the next Nigerian. If we don't continually wait for others to speak on our behalf, if we will speak our own truth, we will not find ourselves in situations where we are being traded by those who purport to speak on our behalf. And when they purport to speak on our behalf, more often than not, they speak to divisions. So you hear them speaking on behalf of the Yorubas. You hear them speaking on behalf of the Igbos. You hear them speaking on behalf of the Fulanis, on behalf of the Christians, on behalf of the Muslims. So they speak to our multiple divisions without looking for the common interest. Because if you are merely speaking and you don't have a chorus, then of what use are your speakings except to feather your own nest? So you should not be surprised when you see them jumping from APC to PDP, PDP to APC. It's found on pecuniary interest. Some of them can't exist outside of government. They will be broke within a year of leaving government. So, but you must understand that I don't blame them. I blame them. We are more than them. It is incumbent on us, even those of us who presume arrogantly to think that we know better than the other victims. We cannot know enough on our own and then be isolated in our own silos, be speaking Dogon Trenchi and postulating all kinds of hypotheses. We have to reach out to the people. We have to show them the truth of their circumstances. It is only then that all this matters. But when you are just speaking so that they will notice you, so that they can call you, so that you may be settled.
Yeah. So, DF, I need to let you go.
Those are your cash TV.
I need to let you go, but I just have one final question for you, because you always speak often about sacrifice, right? What should sacrifice look like for this generation, and are we really ready for it? Just the final thought.
You know, it's interesting you're asking this question, because I think in recent times, on account of age, and perhaps because I'm somewhat isolated where I am, I'm having some me time, so I've been thinking a lot in recent days, and I would say to you very clearly that where we are today, our road out of it lies in our capacity to imagine a better tomorrow. And having imagined one is not just about sacrifice. You must know what you are sacrificing for. It's not enough to be ready and committed to the point where you are even willing to die for your beliefs. Question is, exactly what are you dying for? So I would say to the youth that yes, they must be prepared to sacrifice for a better tomorrow. But the question is, what does that tomorrow look like? So that when you are waiting for that tomorrow to come, you know exactly what it is that you are waiting for.
So it's almost like putting the vision ahead.
Proverb, and I'll use that to sum up. Yeah, Yorubas will say to you that it is sweet to eat well-dried dog meat. For those of you who are lovers of dogs, sorry, some traditions eat it. So they say it is sweet to eat dog meat, but it takes time for it to dry. And before it dries, you must eat something. You will eat something before then. But here is the importance of that proverb. You have something to look forward to, even whilst you are waiting for the thing to dry. Question is, what is it? What purpose are we calling our youth to that we're asking them to sacrifice for? So that is, I believe, where those who desire change in Nigeria and the youth have work to do. If we are calling them to sacrifice, what vision are we calling them to sacrifice for?
Oh my God.
Some young men were buoyed by vision to go to war. What is the purpose and vision to which we are calling our own youth? Say, Nigeria, we hate the Nigeria's call obey. If I'm to obey a call, what is the call calling me to do? What's the purpose of the call?
Thank you so much, DF. I stole 20 minutes extra of your time this evening, but thank you for obliging us. I think it was really necessary for us to be able to land the conversation home. Thank you so much. Thank you. I do not, take this for granted. Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure, an absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, June 12 has never been just about one man or one election. It was and still is a mirror showing us the kind of country we could be if only we choose, right? Courage over comfort and truth over tradition. Tonight's conversation was not about blame game or whatever, as you can see. It's just for us to be able to strip where we are. It was a call, a call to remember, yes, but more importantly, to act, to question, to organize, and to insist on a Nigeria that works for everybody, not just the privileged few. We're tired. I mean, everybody deserves a chance to live a better life in this country. So my name is Osayiwa Mesale, and I believe we all still have one life, one nation, and the chance to make the most of both. So do something today. Act today, and don't be quiet. Let's demand for excellence and better governance. Thank you so much for watching. Now remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's at Official Upgrade TV. You can interact with us further. You can also drop your comments. We'd love to read your comments, right? Share your thoughts on this conversation. Invite your families and friends. Share the links to them to also watch. If you missed our quote for today, it says, "Let us rededicate ourselves to ideals of June 12, freedom, transparent and accountable government, social justice, active citizen participation, and a just society where no one is oppressed." And this was said by the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, meaning that these people in positions of leadership, they understand, what is needed to be done. So if we do not occupy our office as citizens to start to demand, we might never get, the El Dorado or whatever it is that we're looking for, right? And we need to really sit down and say, what is the vision? What is the vision Nigeria? And then we can now start to work towards it. We'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, lives a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.